Welcome to KTAL News Now. I'm your host, Marlo Layson, and today we are diving into men's mental health. Licensed therapist and the host of the Vulnerability is the New Sexy podcast, Joe Corley, is here. He's going to help us work through some issues that men may be facing when it comes to their mental health, because June is designated as Men's Health Month and Men's Mental Health Month. So, welcome, Joe.
Thanks for having me, Marlo. Happy to be here.
So let's get into how mental wellness or the lack of mental wellness can show up in a man's physical health.
Yeah, these two are very interconnected, very interconnected. When you start neglecting your mental health by suppressing all the emotional pain, the physical symptoms that pop up in you can go any direction of ways. For instance, you start feeling fatigued all the time or low energy. And then, it shows up in your muscle tension. You have back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, and you might not even know where it's coming from. But, the energy that it takes to suppress all that emotional pain, your body fights that. Your body fights that, and it fights that with with its health, changing your appetite. You don't sleep, chest gets tight, and you start having heart problems. I mean, and then not to mention, it can affect your sexual health, decrease your libido and cause some erectile dysfunction. There's just all types of ways that, your body can show up to protect you from the suppression of emotional pain. 100%.
Um, can you explain what emotional intelligence is and why having emotional intelligence is important to men's overall health and mental health?
So, emotional intelligence is the ability to regulate yourself and respond in a way that, doesn't do more damage to you. Basically, that's the most plainest way I can put it. Like for men especially, the go-to emotion is anger. And we will respond with anger because that's the only one typically that we are allowed to display. A lot of times men don't get to be sad, they don't get to be, depressed or, feel any kind of way, but angry. So with low emotional intelligence, it tells us, well, let's react. Let's do something violent. Let's, kick this trash can. Let's, all the other things. But when you increase your emotional intelligence, it will help you basically regulate your emotions. You become very self-aware. You gain empathy for other people, and you learn not to take every single thing personally. You increase your social skills. You start to build healthy relationships, and you resolve conflict in a way that doesn't involve you doing more damage to yourself, than you would have had if you didn't have this emotional intelligence. I mean, you could probably go into the prison system, for example, and talk to a bunch of men who are in there because they lacked emotional intelligence in one moment, just one moment. They weren't able to regulate themselves and they made a mistake that kind of showed up for the rest of their lives. So, emotional intelligence is mainly about understanding your feelings and regulating emotions, having empathy for others, knowing how to be vulnerable when it's time to be vulnerable and not look at that as a weakness, and being able to, communicate in a way that's healthy.
So you touched on something that I hadn't considered before, but since you are the host of Vulnerability is the New Sexy, and you just mentioned being vulnerable, why do you think that some men, is it a societal thing or a cultural thing, where some men feel like vulnerability and masculinity cannot coexist?
Yeah, it's never been safe for it's for and it's getting safer now, but generations before, vulnerability has never been safe for men overall, because that is, considered weakness. If you go into a situation, we talk, don't big boys don't cry. Even if you're a small child, you're told big boys don't cry. They're telling you that at 5 years old. Meanwhile, what do you do? Even the hardest thugs got to go somewhere to cry. Because if they don't, then that comes out in a terrible way. So vulnerability, uh, we need to reframe the way that we look at it. It's not a weakness. It's actually about the strongest thing we can do for ourselves by discussing our emotions, talking about the things that make us feel unsafe, the things that make us feel sad, the things that frustrate us, so that we can figure out a way to deal with these things in a healthy way versus, like I said, lashing out in some type of violent fashion or just angry overall.
And that's interesting because I noticed as I was researching this that things that we often write off as personality traits, you mentioned anger, irritability, aggressiveness. These are things that we have kind of just like attached to people's personality. But through my research, I learned that these are actually ways that depression will show itself through a man. How can we as women help the men that we love navigate themselves? Potentially through hopefully to therapy, but definitely just to understand that that aggressiveness that you've shown since you were 10 years old is actually linked to trauma. It's not who you are as a person.
Right. The first thing I feel like any woman could do is learn healthy communication in herself. Like don't, turn your feelings into criticism. You have, as a woman, an entitlement to the way that you feel. But can you communicate that feeling without criticizing or contempting your voice? Hey, when this happens, I feel this way, and this is what I need from you. uh, a man who is in love with his woman and who can um, has the basic level of empathy and emotional intelligence can take that and then communicate. Okay, I understand my woman's needs. Okay, so she needs me to do this. Let me attempt to do that to make sure that she's happy or satisfied. So, um, modeling the type of behavior that you want to see, basically. And that's the first thing you could do, and then become, do your best to become a safe space for that man, and understand that most of his life he's been told that, showing emotion for a majority of men, I'm not going to say speak for all, but showing emotion is a weakness. So he doesn't feel safe, being emotional. That's actually a threatening space for him. When you see him angry, understand that, anger is a secondary emotion. It usually means he's depressed or sad or, or scared. Uh, anger is not a primary emotion. If you're seeing that anger, it's something going on right away. And understand something's going on underneath there that he doesn't know how to communicate in a healthy way. So it's coming out this way. So start asking the questions. What do you need? What's going on with you? But also in the same time, communicate. I don't feel safe when you yell at me. Can you tell me what's going on with you without, yelling at me? Because I don't appreciate that.
Um, So I learned that about, and this is a stat that's been consistent. It's only lost a few percentage points between 2015 and 2020, the last study that I found, but only about or less than 10% of white men admit to feeling depressed, right? So that means that they have said it either in a survey or to a doctor, and then maybe taken some action. When we talk about Black men and Hispanic men who don't identify as white, that number decreases even more significantly than that 10%. How does culture contribute to men being stuck in various states of depression or anxiety or other feelings of like emotional woe?
I mean, it contributes greatly. I mean, going back to the origins of any culture, you would definitely be able to trace and find out why certain men of color don't speak up when it comes to these things. It's never been in many ways, again, it's never been a safe space. It's never been safe to say that I'm weaker than this. As a Hispanic and a Black man, I have an overwhelming need to prove myself and prove my value at all times, just to be considered even close to being on the same par. So any chinks in my armor would not be accepted. I can't afford to have chinks in my armor. I have to prove my value at all times. I'm always, always defending my worth and trying to prove my value. So I don't have time to tell you that I'm hurting, and really that's really what it boils down to, is trying to maintain your value overall.
So as we talk about that, let's switch gears to younger men. And how can we help? younger generations, younger men and adolescent boys understand their emotions, understand how to express those emotions in a positive way to get to resolution and make it a little bit less taboo for those boys to cry.
Yeah, I mean, we have to build relationships with younger men, with older men. I mean, we don't do that. We always a generation of men that I mean, it was very rare where you saw an older man that was able to build a relationship with the younger man, and we have to do better at that. We have to make sure that they understand and see that vulnerability is okay. We have to create safe spaces and talk to them instead of talking at them. There's a lot of, generation before us, before me. I'm 44 years old. They talked at me. They told me, and understandably, because generation before me was based solely off survival. So you have to survive. This is what you need to do to survive, and let you know right away. You can't cry. It's three strikes, you got two strikes coming in the door. I mean, all these things that you hear about just trying to maintain and walk in society as a man that kind of make you just kind of, tighten your armor up and keep things to yourself. You just, stick it out, toughen up, push through, push through, push through. And hey, we all got problems. These are the type of statements that we make. It could be worse. These are the kind of statements that we make that minimize our feelings. And we have to stop doing that with these younger boys. We have to start telling them, hey, give them a space. Let's talk. Okay, what's going on? And let me help me understand, put feelings to everything that's going on. I give out in my practice for especially for younger guys, I give them out feeling wheels with a bunch of words that describe feelings. Okay. So put feelings to whatever you're going so we can talk about it. You can't even begin to communicate if I don't know how you feel. And the one thing I cannot do is argue with your feelings. If you feel this way, there's a reason for it. Let's drill down and talk about it. So and we have to make sure that we get in these younger guys in the healing spaces too. Yeah, get ourselves into healing spaces first and understand that they do work and they are effective. And then, open them up to our younger boys so they can see the effectiveness of communication, especially with other older men.
I always say the internet is the gift and the curse. And one thing that the internet and social sharing has given us is access to what I call therapy words. We hear about gaslighting and narcissism and all of these words that are clinical terms that are kind of being thrown about by people who are not clinicians, they aren't mental health professionals. Do you think that this wide use or this accessibility of these therapeutic terms and diagnoses, you think that diminishes the importance of knowing when one needs help, kind of diminishes people's feeling that they need to seek help because you could just read the internet?
100%. Therapy speak is not therapy. Social media therapists are not therapists. They have the accessible language, like you said, boundaries and gaslighting and let people like to throw out narcissism all the time. But it lacks the nuance, it lacks the context that comes from, talking to someone who is trained. I mean, there's deeper emotional work. I know people that use Chat GPT as their therapist, and knowing what the terms are. Oh, I need boundaries. Do you understand why you need boundaries? Okay, you don't understand why certain things are gaslighting you. How can there's certain things you can say to me that are not going to affect me, and there's certain things that you're going to say to me that are very effective against me. And if you just tell me I'm being gaslit without telling me why, then you haven't understood anything. You haven't expanded your capacity to deal with it because it's not about making someone stop gaslighting you. We're not going to be able to do that. We have to get to a space where we can sustain when somebody's trying to gaslight us, when somebody's trying to violate our boundaries. What do we do then? I have a boundary. Okay, good. Can you force people to not violate those boundaries? No. So you create that sense of that false sense of awareness because you give out the words, but you're not healing. And that's what it is. Like you just know a bunch of words. And that's not it. We have to be able to know what is bothering us, why it's bothering us, why it's triggering us, and we have to be vulnerable about it so that we can strengthen up ourselves and expand our capacity to deal with certain things that are continuously bothering us.
So, what would you suggest for a young man, an older man, just a man in general, who has been um, experiencing feelings that he can't quite grapple with? What would your advice be to that man? Maybe he's not ready yet for therapy, but what should he do, or what is a good path for him to take to begin to start healing himself?
Get ready for therapy. There's no shortcuts. If he's not ready for therapy, get ready. Okay, take the first step, make that first appointment. I'm here to tell you, if you take one thing from me today, I assure you that therapy does work. And just like anything else, you have to find somebody that knows what they're doing and also that is for you. You can't get a therapist who, treats a certain thing or is good at a certain thing and expect them to know and understand everything that you got going on. So sometimes it's about getting the right fit. Not sometimes, all the time it's about getting the right fit and taking that first step. So if you're not ready for therapy, my advice to you, bro, is get ready. Go to the therapist and start processing your pain.